Hi, George Durkee again with the Columbia College ArcGIS Online web mapping class. And in this lesson, we're going to go through the steps to create a web app from the Geoform we created in lesson 3A. And if you look in your table of contents in your organizational account, Columbia College account, and look under the folder that would have been created. It's created automatically when you save and publish your Survey123 form, and it creates 3 files. The first, of course, is going to be the form, and then the other 2, one is called feature layer hosted, and the other is feature layer hosted view. Now the basic hosted layer is going to be your source layer. At the moment, both of these are exactly the same, but you're going to want to have the hosted view file as your working file because this allows you to assign different responsibilities and different editing constraints when you create your app. And so you'd create a different view file, or I'm sorry, you'd create a different view for each set of constraints and editing abilities you put on the layer. And you can get a better idea of how that works by searching for the file, and with luck I'll post it here on YouTube, getting started with hosted feature layer views, and also the help file creating hosted feature layer views, and that'll tell you how to specifically set up your different views depending on what permissions you want to give for each one. So to start editing, you actually have a couple of start creating the web app. You have a couple of choices. You can either create a new map by going to map and then adding that file as a feature layer, or you can create it directly from the file. So I'd go to feature layer and then click on it, and open in Map Viewer. And here you have 2 choices: add to map, and that'll add your feature layer there, but without full editing controls. So for instance, you can establish a point, but you can't delete that point. It's just the basic difference with this particular geoform that we've created. So I'm going to add it to the map with full editing controls, which means that if we create a point, we can also delete it immediately if we make a mistake. And remember too that we're still in the web map here, and so whatever extent that you decide on is going to be the extent that shows up in your web app. So if you're just working on a small geographic area, then you'd focus in on that area. And you can also, from the map, remember everything you do on the map shows up on the web app you create. So in this case, our symbol is that little orange circle, and let's say we don't want to do that, so we go to change style. I'm not sure I showed this in earlier videos, and then you can choose if you want the point to reflect an actual field you've entered or just show the location. And so for this, we're just going to show the location, and then you select a drawing style. So then you go to options and you choose a symbol, and you can let's do a nice little yellow arrow, huh? And you have a whole bunch of sets here, and that's one thing you'll want to explore, is go through the various sets and get an idea of what kind of shapes you have available. So I made this little yellow arrow because why not? And then you have the symbol size, and again you can change this at any time. Let's make it kind of big anyway. Put it up at 20 or so, and OK. And then you can also choose the range at which it's visible. This is especially useful if you have a very crowded set of large symbols, and from way out they just take up the whole map. So you can decide that in fact you don't even want the symbols to show up until you zoom in fairly close. And I'll just do this as an example. So notice they've disappeared. And the little black arrow here shows your current map scale, and it even tells you that that's the state level. And if you move it down, it defines it, whether it's at the city level, the community level, the street level, etc. So I'm putting it down a bit, just for illustration. And again, the transparency. So you may have created a large symbol, but you want to show what's on the background of the map. So you can actually increase the transparency so you can see through that symbol. So for the moment, let's just accept that. We'll probably want to change it later. And then we'll just say we're done. And notice as I zoom in at a certain point, the symbols will appear, I say. Maybe they won't. They're in there. Well, I guess. Okay, so that kind of illustrates how you want to be careful on the zoom style. So let's go with this again. Go back to options, and there's the level we're at. So we'll go out to that, and then go OK. So they appear, and so we know where they are. And so notice also here at the top here that ArcGIS has by default put in that this is the field worker view, and that depends, I think, on the permissions that you've set. And so this is going to be the person in the field collecting the data rather than an office person or something like that. So anyway, let's just go with this and let's save it. And we're going to enter in a title. So let's call this Ranger Field Survey, and let's call this Test 2. We'll keep with Field Worker. Test 2 Geoform. And I just probably put in a little too much there, just so I know what I'm working with. We add a tag, test, and Geoform, and web map. Let's put in web map here too, so we don't get confused between our maps and our apps, even though it tells us in the file type. And a description, web map test 2 of Geoform. Okay, notice you can choose the folder it goes into, and so we're going to keep it in the same folder, which is there by default. We save. And now let's go to the app. And remember, we can go back to this at any time and make changes in the symbology, the zoom level, etc., and that'll be immediately reflected in the app. But you also have to remember to refresh the app to see the change reflected. So to do that, you just go to Share. And if you want to share just this map, you can do it with this link. But depending on the permissions you give here, if you send a map to a friend who's not in the Columbia College program with a account on ArcGIS, then you have to have it permissioned to everyone. If it's someone within the program, then have it set to Columbia. And once you make a link to, or I'm sorry, once you make a map available to everyone, then all of the metadata is made available on the AGOL server links. And I think for our purposes, let's not clog that up, and let's just keep it local. So, and also, yeah, so as a result, we don't need that link at the moment. So right now, we're going to create a web app. And you have two choices, again, which we covered in the first lessons, was choose a already configured app or the web app builder. And I'm going to, I hope, do both in this same video. First, we'll do a already configured app, and I'll choose the Geoform. You scroll down here and you see Geoform, and then we'll come back and we'll do a customized one. So you can preview it, and that's a good way of doing it too, because there's so many choices here. You want to preview each one, and it'll act on the feature layer that you've made available, and you can actually get an idea of colors and how it's going to work and things like that. And then what's available by default, which sometimes you can't expand on, and that's why in some cases the web app builder is better, because you can add a lot more widgets and customize it better. But let's just go with create web app. And again, the same thing, and we want to, oh, I guess I called that a web app. Okay. And then summary, test 2 of web app using Geoform template. Done. And this is pretty straightforward. You just go one step at a time through this. It leads you through the whole thing, and pretty easy to do. So get started. And then we go to the web map, and this of course allows you to choose your web map. And since we started this by creating the web map first, it's already there and is going to be associated with this. So we go to next. And which layers you want to select for editing, but we only have one layer there, so we'll just go with that. If you have several layers, so we've created a point layer, but if you've also created a polygon or a line, those will be available as well. And so this allows you to add a little more detail. So we can change the title, and that's just for a title. Let's make something a little more condensed. Ranger field worker observations. We'll just go with that. You can put in a logo image. We won't do that at the moment. And you can put in instructions, and so just briefly fill out form and submit. And if it's a complicated form, you'll want to give better instructions. And these next ones show, for the submit button, it says submit entry. Let's go with that. View submissions. And so once you make your submission, once you submit it, you're given the option of seeing who else has made observations and where they are. So let's accept that. Go to next. And then you can choose to show which fields are going to be accessible when the form comes up on the screen. And so we've created all those, so we'll just go with those as well. But you can turn them on and off just by clicking on and off the box. And you may decide that even though you've created the form, you don't want all of those in use. Or you may only want them for a specific view. So you may want office workers, say, to have access to the entire form, and you may want field people to have only some of those available. And next down the list here, we've enabled attachments, so people can send photos or GPS files, and whether or not to require an attachment, we won't do that. And attachment description, so let's say send photos, GPS, and waypoint files. We'll just go with that. We go to next. Style, so this is just the colors and so on. Let's get something that shows you a little bit. That's pretty colorful. Let's go with that. The viewer, so if you don't want people to view the cumulative data, you can do that. And so you just disable the viewer, but we'll allow people to look at everything. And then the display field, and this is the field that's going to show up if the viewer is enabled and everybody's observations show up, then this is the field that it'll be ordered by. And so let's just go by date. Go to next. And so these options here enable offline support, and Esri is getting a lot better about that. So you can store stuff, so you're carrying a portable phone or tablet or something like that, and so it stores everything until there's a network connection, then it uploads everything at once. Social media sharing buttons, so it's got stuff for Facebook and Twitter and all that. Default map extent, and so that's the same as the web map. And then locate on load, so that locates your location in the fields, which is useful if this is actually going to be a field phone-based form. So it'll zoom in on your location based on your device's GPS. But mostly this will be people who aren't necessarily on site. And you can toggle between several base maps. So let's do that, and notice that when I did that, it gives you the choices down below. And so we'll allow both topographic map, which will be the base, and then it'll toggle between that and the satellite imagery. And then they can locate themselves or locate the observation either from their location at the time using the search box, which connects to Esri's servers for location, so you can search for a specific city or a lake or something like that. You can do it by lat long, or I'm going to check UTM here. USNG is US National Grid, which is used a lot on large disasters, but isn't in real common use just yet. And MGRS is the same, that's military. So let's go with that. Let's go to next. And so there's what it's going to look like. You can just scroll down here to get an idea. One thing, this is kind of big here, so let's go back to details, I think it is. Yeah, let's use the small header and see if anything else there. Back to preview again. Notice that made it a little smaller. Fill out form and submit. And of course, you can add more detail to that subheading. And then there's all the fields. And so that looks pretty good. Observation type, notice that that's the drop down, or date of observation, and you can fill that in. And so it looks pretty good. We can actually come back and edit that, and let's see, for the search box, let's search Twain Harte. So that comes up right there, and it zooms in. And we can zoom in a little more. Now in this case, remember when we went just with the geoform itself, you moved the map under the pin to locate it more accurately. But in this case, you actually grab the pin and move that around, and that's the Geoform template. So let's go with that. then we can, I didn't fill out any information. You can then submit entry or view submissions. So we go to next, and now we decide to publish. At the moment, let's just save. And then it gives you the option of sharing this right away, but we won't do that. We'll just close that. And let's just, well, yeah, let's see what it looks like. So we take the form link, copy it, and let's open. And you also, if you made it a public form, you want to test it to make sure that the public can see it. So if you've checked everyone to share with, you want to do that. And so then you'd open a private browser and make sure that people who aren't logged into ArcGIS Online, that they don't need an account to view this. But in our case, it's just Columbia, and I'm already logged in there. So let's just take a look at it here and see what we get. So let's go through one real quick here. We'll give today's date, and we'll give, having made the observation on the 2nd, we'll say it's resource damage, trash, large pile of cans and bottles behind boulder at Merced Lake East Shore, submitted by Durkee G, contact, and then East Shore, Merced Lake, Yosemite National Park. And you can even attach a photo if you have one. And then you go down to location. Let's see if Merced Lake is in there. Merced Lake. Let's see what we end up with here. Zoom in. Yep, there it is. And so I said the East Shore, so let's move it over here to the stream, say. And you can also have locate me, and so that'll find your actual location. So again, if you're out in the field with a phone with a GPS on, that'll work. So let's submit. Then it gives you the option of sharing and viewing all submissions. So let's take a look here. And there we go. So there's the one we just did at Yosemite. And notice it's ordered here in date order. And if you click on the entry, it gives you the specific data of that point. And over here, notice you can toggle to satellite image, and we can zoom way in, or just back to topo. And notice that you can also order it by creation date, date of submission, date of observation, etc., etc. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you can fool around with here, but in this short course, we're just giving you the basics. And of course, you can show the legend. So this is the Geoform app. Remember, it's a template that you choose. And I think we're already up to 25 minutes here, so I will make yet a third video showing how to do a custom one, and with luck that'll be a little faster. So okay, thanks, and stand by for the third video. It'll be lesson 3C on how to use the customized app making process. It's essentially the same, but gives you a little more flexibility. Okay, thanks.